Welcome to HardScript.
The message came in while I was under a lifted truck, oil dripping down my sleeve, and the radio fighting static in the corner of the garage. I need to be alone for a while. Don't take it personal. I just need me time. I wiped my hands, read it again, then typed 2 words. Got it. The phone went dark. The garage stayed loud. Air compressor, metal clatter, the usual rhythm that never asked questions. That evening we were supposed to meet at a rooftop launch party for the clothing brand she managed. Claire loved those events. Bright lights, loud music, people who said her name like it meant something. She had picked my shirt the night before and left it folded on the bed like a reminder of where I was expected to stand. I went anyway. The rooftop overlooked the river, all glass railings and string lights. Everyone held thin glasses and talked like they were being recorded. I stayed near the edge, watching the city blink awake in the dark. Claire moved through the crowd like she owned the place, laughing, touching arms, tilting her head when someone spoke. Every few minutes, she checked her phone. Not like someone waiting for news. Like someone waiting for permission. That was when I saw him. Ethan Cole. I knew the name from old stories she told back when stories still came home with her. College. Photography. Road trips that sounded expensive and irresponsible. The kind of memories she used to describe as another lifetime. He stood near the bar with a camera slung across his chest like it belonged there. People leaned toward him. He barely moved, just smiled and let the room orbit. Claire walked straight to him. Not surprised, not hesitant, just familiar. She said something close to his ear because the music was loud. He laughed without looking at her face, like he already knew the punchline. His hand landed on her lower back in a way that looked practiced. Not bold, not accidental. Practiced. A coworker beside me muttered that the brand had hired a freelance photographer for the campaign. A last-minute replacement. Someone Claire personally recommended. I stayed by the railing. The river moved slow and black below. Behind me, she leaned into a story that didn't include me. She did not see me leave the rooftop. Or maybe she did and chose not to react. Either way, she did not follow. The next morning, she moved through the apartment quietly, already dressed for work, phone in her hand like it had weight. She said she had stayed late after the event, that the team grabbed drinks, that the photographer was actually really talented. She said his name casually, like she had just remembered it. Ethan. I nodded and poured coffee. Her screen lit up while she was in the shower. It buzzed against the marble counter and slid a few inches closer to the sink. I was not looking for anything. I just reached to stop it from falling. His name filled the top of the screen. The preview was enough. He had written that he missed that version of her. That last night felt familiar. That he had not realized how much he needed it. The shower kept running. I placed the phone back exactly where it had been and walked into the kitchen. I stood there with my coffee growing cold in my hand while the water shut off and the door opened. She came out wrapped in a towel, scrolling before she even dried her hair. Her expression softened for half a second. Then it flattened when she noticed me watching. At the shop, my friend Mike leaned against the tool chest and asked how the party went. I told him it was loud. He laughed and said he saw photos already posted online. Claire and the photographer looked tight, was the word he used. Real creative energy. That afternoon, a notification popped up from the brand's account. A behind-the-scenes clip. Claire and Ethan shoulder to shoulder, reviewing shots on his camera. Her hand resting on his arm longer than necessary. His head dipping toward hers like they shared a private joke. I did not comment. I did not call her. That evening she texted that she needed space to think. Said she felt overwhelmed. Said she needed to reconnect with herself. I answered the same way I had before. Got it. And this time, I did not ask when she would be back. She started calling it creative sessions. That was the phrase she used when she packed a small overnight bag and said she might stay with a friend from work to reset. She did not say Ethan's name again, but it stayed in the room with us like a third presence. I did not argue. I did not ask questions. I helped her carry the bag to the door. After she left, the apartment felt staged. The couch pillows were too straight. The kitchen counters too clean, like a place waiting to be photographed. I sat at the dining table and opened the shared banking app on my phone. At first, I only scanned out of habit. Rent, utilities, groceries. Normal patterns. Then new charges began appearing over the past few weeks. A recurring payment to a property management company I did not recognize. Small amounts at first, then larger ones labeled as furnishing. I tapped into the details. The lease was under Ethan Cole's name. The address was across town, in a renovated building near the Arts District. I knew the area. Exposed brick, high ceilings, the kind of place people described as inspiring. I did not slam the phone down. I did not swear. I zoomed in on the transactions and took note of the dates. They lined up perfectly with her late meetings and brand dinners. Later that night, she posted a story. A photo of city lights through tall industrial windows. No tag. No caption except a small white heart. The couch in the background was new. I had assembled the same model for a customer once and recognized the stitching on the armrest. I drove past the address the next evening without slowing. Her car was parked 2 blocks away, tucked behind a row of trees. His motorcycle stood out front like a flag. I kept driving. At the shop the next morning, I asked my accountant to separate my business funds from our joint account. Told him I wanted everything clean and independent. He did not ask why. He just nodded and started the paperwork. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. I need to be alone for a while. Don't take it personal. I just need me time. I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back exactly what she expected. Got it. Then I started moving. I did not wait for the night to end. The moment her message came through, I walked into the office at the back of the shop and logged into the bank from my desktop. The joint account still held the emergency fund we had built over years. Vacation money that never turned into vacations. A cushion for someday. I transferred my portion into a separate account under my name only. Clean. Documented. No drama. Just numbers moving from one column to another. Then I called the leasing office for our apartment complex. I told them I needed to remove myself from the renewal. I asked about early termination options and penalties. The woman on the line said it would require a formal notice. I submitted it electronically before she finished explaining. After that, I contacted a storage facility on the edge of town and reserved a climate-controlled unit large enough for my tools and the equipment I kept at home. The confirmation email came through within minutes. When I stepped outside, the air felt different, like I had already left something behind. Back at the apartment, I packed quietly. Work clothes first. Important documents. The framed photo from our first anniversary that had been sitting on the dresser. I did not smash it. I placed it face down in a box and sealed it. My phone stayed on the kitchen counter, screen up. I did not block her. I did not mute her. I let it ring when it rang. A half hour after her first message, another one came through. So you're just gonna leave? I was carrying the last box to my truck when it buzzed again. The tone echoed inside the empty living room. I did not answer. The bed was stripped. My side of the closet was bare. The garage door closed behind me with a steady mechanical hum that sounded final. I drove away without speeding. In the rearview mirror, the building looked exactly the same as it had that morning. By the time the sun came up, the apartment held only her version of me time. I did not drive to a friend's place. I did not park outside a bar. I went straight to the storage facility and backed my truck up to the unit I had just rented. The metal door rolled up with a hollow rattle. The space smelled like dust and cold concrete. I carried the boxes in one by one and stacked them against the far wall. My toolbox went in last. The red paint was scratched from years of work, but it was mine. Paid for. Earned. When I finished, I locked the unit and slid the key into my pocket. Claire's name kept lighting up my phone. First messages asking where I was. Then questions about why the joint card was declined at a grocery store. After that, the tone shifted. She wrote that this was childish, that she had only asked for space, not abandonment. I let the notifications pile up without opening them. Back at the shop, I asked Mike to take over customer calls for the afternoon. I stepped into my office and pulled up the state website. The divorce filing process was straightforward. Forms, attachments, confirmation screens. I filled in my information carefully, line by line. No rush. No shaking hands. When I hit submit, an email arrived almost immediately confirming receipt. That evening, Claire posted nothing. No city lights. No filtered photos. No vague captions. Her silence online was louder than anything she had written before. The next morning she showed up at the shop. She did not walk in confidently like she used to. She stood near the entrance, heels clicking awkwardly against the concrete floor, scanning the room like she was unsure if she was allowed there. Mike glanced at me from across the bay. I nodded once, and he disappeared into the back. Claire asked where I had gone. She said she came home and half the apartment was empty. She said the leasing office called her about paperwork. She said she did not understand why I was overreacting. I wiped my hands on a rag and told her she had asked to be alone. Then I went back under the hood of the truck in front of me. She did not expect me to keep working while she stood there. The engine was still warm, and the smell of oil filled the space between us. Claire shifted her weight, arms crossed, waiting for me to stop and look at her the way I used to when she wanted attention. I adjusted a hose clamp and tightened it without lifting my head. She said I was embarrassing her, that the leasing office had called her at work and asked about my removal from the agreement, that her coworkers overheard part of the conversation. She said people were starting to ask questions. I slid out from under the hood and reached for a diagnostic tablet. My hands moved steady, practiced. I told her she did not have to explain anything to anyone. She had asked for time alone. I was giving it to her. She laughed once, short and sharp, like she was waiting for me to smile afterward. When I did not, the laugh faded. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced at the screen, and for a split second I saw the same name I had seen on the bathroom counter weeks ago. Ethan. She turned the phone face down quickly, as if that erased it. She said he had nothing to do with this. She said he was just a photographer the brand hired. She said I was connecting dots that were not there. I walked past her to the front desk and pulled a small envelope from the drawer. Inside was a printed copy of the filing confirmation. I placed it on the counter between us without pushing it toward her. She stared at the top line, where both our names were typed in clean black letters. The color drained from her face slowly, not dramatically, just enough to make the fluorescent lights above us look harsher. She asked if I was serious. I told her I had been serious for years. I just stopped pretending this week. For the first time since she walked in, she had no next line ready. She did not cry at the shop. She folded the paper once, twice, like it might disappear if she made it small enough. Then she said she needed to talk somewhere private. Not here. Not with my employees walking past. I told her I had work to finish. That afternoon, her best friend Jenna came by instead. She had been to our apartment more times than I could count. She used to sit at our kitchen island and talk about branding strategies while Claire cooked. Now she stood near the service desk, arms wrapped around herself, eyes scanning the grease-stained floor like she had stepped into foreign territory. Jenna said Claire was spiraling, that she had not expected things to go this far, that Ethan was complicated, and that Claire was confused, not malicious. I listened without interrupting. Jenna lowered her voice and said people at the brand were talking. Someone had mentioned seeing Claire's car parked overnight near Ethan's new place. Another coworker had joked about how creative sessions seemed to require candles and wine deliveries. I did not react. Jenna asked if I was really going through with the divorce. She said Claire thought I would cool off after a few days, that I always cooled off. I told her this was not about cooling off. This was paperwork already filed. That evening, Claire sent a long message. She wrote that she had made a mistake reconnecting with someone from her past. She said it started as closure. She said she had felt invisible at home and needed to feel seen again. She insisted nothing serious had happened, that I was blowing it out of proportion. I read it once and locked my phone. Later, I drove past the arts district again. Ethan's motorcycle was gone. The windows of his loft were dark. Claire's car was not in our apartment parking lot either. For the first time, I did not wonder where she was. I wondered how long it would take before she realized she had nowhere steady left to stand. The next time she came to the shop, she did not wear heels. She showed up in sneakers and a sweatshirt, hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked younger and more tired at the same time. She waited until the last customer left before stepping inside. I was closing out invoices at the front desk when she said Ethan had backed out of their latest campaign. She claimed he had taken a higher-paying project in another state and left without finishing the edits. She said her boss was furious because she had pushed to hire him. Now the brand was scrambling to meet deadlines. I kept typing. She moved closer and said she had gone to the loft to talk, but he had already packed most of his equipment. She said he told her he was not looking for anything serious, that he had assumed she was figuring herself out, not burning her life down. She watched my face for a reaction. I gave her none. She said she had thought I would fight harder, that when she wrote she needed space, she expected questions, maybe even anger. She said my silence felt worse than shouting. I told her I answered exactly what she asked for. Her phone buzzed again in her hand. This time she did not flip it over fast enough. A notification from her boss flashed across the screen, requesting a meeting about professional boundaries. She swallowed and said people were judging her. That Jenna had stopped replying to messages. That her parents had called after hearing about the divorce filing through a mutual friend. I closed the laptop and finally looked at her. She asked if there was still a way to fix this. She said she had ended whatever was happening with Ethan. She said she realized too late what she was risking. I told her I had already moved my things out, that the storage unit was paid, that the paperwork was in motion. For the first time, she did not argue. She just stood there, as if the room had shifted and she was the only one who had not noticed. Word travels fast when people think they are whispering. Within days, customers who had known us as a couple started coming into the shop with careful expressions. One man mentioned he had seen Claire at a restaurant across town with a creative type a few weeks back. He said it casually, like small talk, then quickly changed the subject. I kept working. Claire's social media went quiet. No brand shoots. No rooftop views. The last photo still pinned at the top was from months ago, the two of us standing in front of my shop on its anniversary. I had grease on my hands. She had her arm around my waist, smiling at the camera like stability was something she was proud of. In the evenings, she began calling instead of texting. I let most of the calls ring out. When I did answer, she spoke slower, softer. She said the meeting with her boss had not gone well, that the company was reviewing her role, that hiring Ethan had raised questions about judgment. She said Ethan stopped responding altogether. His social media showed him in another city, posting behind-the-scenes shots from a new campaign. No mention of her. No trace. One night she asked if she could come by the storage unit to talk. I told her there was nothing there for her. She said the apartment felt different without my things, that the closet echoed when she opened it, that the kitchen table looked too big. I did not remind her that she had asked to be alone. Instead, I met with my attorney the next morning and reviewed the next steps. Asset division, timeline, mediation options. Everything laid out clearly, without emotion. Later that day, Claire sent one more message. She wrote that she finally understood I had not disappeared, that I had simply stepped out of the space where I was no longer respected. I did not reply. I just kept moving forward, like I had from the start. The last time we met, it was not at the shop and not at the apartment. It was in a quiet conference room at my attorney's office. Neutral walls, a long table, 2 pitchers of water no one touched. Claire sat across from me with a folder in front of her, fingers resting on top, like she was afraid it might slide away. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just quieter. The energy she used to carry into every room had thinned out. My attorney went over the terms. Division of savings. Responsibility for the remaining lease months. A clean separation of my business from anything shared. Everything straightforward. No surprises. Claire listened without interrupting. When it was her turn to speak, she did not argue about numbers. She did not accuse me of overreacting. She simply said she had not expected me to go through with it. She said she thought I would cool off, that I would fight, that I would show up at Ethan's place demanding explanations. She admitted she mistook my calm for weakness. I kept my hands folded on the table. She said the night she texted that she needed to be alone, she assumed I would wait, that I would stay in the apartment, pacing, checking my phone. She said when she came back and found half the place empty, she realized she had miscalculated. The room stayed quiet after that. When the meeting ended, she lingered by the door. She asked if I had anything else to say. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and told her I had not disappeared. I had simply stopped showing up where I was not respected. There was no anger in my voice. No edge. Just fact. She nodded once, like she finally understood the weight of those words. I walked out of the building without looking back. Outside, the afternoon was clear. My phone stayed silent in my pocket as I headed toward the shop, toward a life that no longer included waiting for someone to decide if I was enough.